this meeting to the order of Belvedere Town Council Business Meeting on April 29th, 2019. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with Chapter 231, excuse me, of the Public Laws of 1975, notice of this meeting is given by way of notice filed with the Star Gazette and the Express Times, filed in the municipal clerk's office, and posted in Belvedere Town Hall, 691 Water Street, Belvedere, New Jersey.
This agenda is subject to last-minute additions and or deletions by the Belvedere Town Council. Do we have any additions and or deletions at this time? I do not as well. Roll call, please.
Mayor Kenzie.
Here.
Councilman McAtoor.
Here.
Councilwoman Myers. Here. Councilwoman Napolitani. Here. Councilman Roth.
Here.
Councilman Tucker.
Here.
Councilman Smigrowski.
I'll entertain a motion in a second to adopt the minutes from April 8th, 2019 workshop.
Motion.
Second.
Questions, comments, or corrections?
Yeah, I have a correction, page 14 and 15. The comments that I made, there was in reference to,
Can you speak up, please? I can't hear.
I'm sorry, it was in reference to, let's see, objection, cap bank, ordinance voting no on payment bills. Councilman Tucker, don't feel cap bank is needed. That wasn't the comment that, so I didn't say that the cap bank wasn't needed. It's just that we will be revisiting it at the beginning of the year, and seeing that we're in good shape right now, we didn't.
Can you just condense that?
Okay,
Into something
maybe
else?
at that particular time we're going to revisit it. And then the only other comment was on the bills. The idea on that was that you have pretty much as the individuals who were working and so forth, it's carrying balances on bills, on various bills. So if you just have that on, I'll be happy.
Okay. You got it.
Do we have any other items? All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay. Public comment, agenda items only. Please stand where you're at. I'm sorry I don't have the podium out. Your name, please, and anything on agenda items only. If not, we're going to move on to committee reports. Adam, you want to start, please?
I can for DPW. I think we've gotten most of all the potholes patched with asphalt. If there's any that anyone knows that are missed, please let someone know. I've seen quite a bit of them done. It looks pretty good. Should be a little smoother driving around town. The pool's getting drained, and Pete Huber with the pool committee there is getting everything cleaned and getting ready for their opening. Yes, septic tank was located, grease traps were located, and they're getting planned to be pumped out. The DPW is working with Nelson on some tree problems that interfere with power lines that run through town. Our landscape lawn mowing contractor started last month. That's going well so far. Brush pickup starts next week for 2 weeks. So make a note if it comes up a conversation that those 2 weeks is the window. Now the weather's warmer, the crosswalks will get repainted as parking spots on Mill Street. There's a scheduled rabies clinic for next month in May. The date might be the 25th, just don't have a confirmation on that. Yard sale signs will be going out shortly for next month, or I guess June, right?
June 1st and 2nd.
June 1st and 2nd, okay. And waiting, we're just finalizing the polls for flags to get up in the middle of May. And here shortly, Mazer Consulting will be doing the surveying and the design for our crosswalk, sidewalk work, eventually our paving work for 5th Street.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Adam, I do have a couple of things, and I know one is just to stay out in the dark, you know nothing about it. It was something that I just thought about today.
Okay.
Maybe you can reach out to the county just for the heck of it.
Okay.
I know it's absolutely something that you have not planned, and it's not on anything that you and I discussed as far as other roads. But being that the county is going to start milling and repaving at the top of Greenwood Street at the upper Scoogies and coming down to the traffic light, making a right on Water Street and going out to Route 46. I'd like to take a quick measurement from the traffic light up Market Street towards the pool
Okay.
and see what you come up with from Market Street to the first alley on the right past Scoops.
Okay.
And do a quick calculation on that for me if you could, please.
Sure.
Just let me know, and you can touch bases with Jason on that
Okay.
as well, just to let him know. In reference to the flags, I've got the brochure now, I'm ordering, if council has no problem, I'm ordering the new topper for the flag down at Riverside Park. It's gonna have an external pulley system, so the flag can go back up and down at Riverside Park. And as soon as I get that, I'll be forwarding it to Jason and looking to get State Line to volunteer the time to put it up. Councilman McAtora.
Yeah, I know Chief Scott wanted to be here tonight.
He's there.
Oh, there he is. I didn't even see him slide in. Okay,
Not supposed to.
just before we talk on the SRL, the school resource officer. As far as the calls to service for the month of March, through the 911 center, they had 408 calls. Some of the larger numbers, again, alarms were 13. There were 6 working fires, 2 unattended deaths. The big ticket item for a while was parking enforcement. So they issued 22 parking summonses for the month of March, which is outstanding. Traffic enforcement, 121. So, and temporary restraining orders, 3, which, for those that don't know, I mean, and Chief could attest to that, how many hours does that take?
Approximately 3.
Right, so, it's a large amount of time. School resource officer, through our finance officer, we've had a discussion on what we're reimbursed by the school, and we've had discussion amongst ourselves, along with the chief, about increasing that fee an additional $5, and that would cover our social security, if I understand, and a few other items. I think our governor now signed into legislation. Part-time employees are entitled to sick time after so many hours. They're accruing, is it 40 hours? They get an hour.
Yeah, you get
It's
1 hour for every 30 hours worked.
So built into that extra $5 an hour is a bank to cover that sick time, should we ever need to use it. In addition to that, the uniform fees. So we thought $5 was fair. Our municipal attorney was kind enough to draft up a document for a contract. The chief and I looked over it. I think, Chief, you want to talk on it real quick? Or?
I'd rather do it in an executive
Okay.
document or something like this.
Anyway, the long and short of it is I think we're very happy with an additional $5 an hour. That covers all the additional fees. What the school is reimbursing Belvedere. So when you see the police budget, understand that the individual that we put at the school, that's in that budget. So when that money is reimbursed back to the municipality, it doesn't go back into the police budget to negate that. So it goes into the general fund. The bottom line is, it is coming back to us. So, the only other thing is, I know the chief is still working on the live scan, it's an ongoing issue, but we have appropriate money in the budget for it, so that's all I have this time.
I have a question. With the officer, you're saying that he's going to get an additional $5 an hour?
No.
Just so I
The
understand.
municipality gets the additional $5. The officer's still getting the same salary that he was receiving per hour.
$27 an hour?
Pardon me?
$27 an hour?
Correct. The additional $5 is to cover the administrative fees for the municipality.
Okay, I just wanted to understand so we're on the same page. Thank you.
Chief and I, as I said, I think I copied you the email, but if you didn't, but I like that this draft contract is one I put together for another municipality. I think most of the provisions are good for you guys, but, and I left the kind of the compensation the way they set it up, just so you can see how somebody else did it, but whatever we collectively decide, I think we can bootstrap, if you will, into that agreement. So if we don't have an executive tonight, maybe you, Charlie, and Kathy and myself can, you know, get a draft in place sufficient to send over to the school attorney or something if you want, Matt, if that works for you, if that works for the mayor and council. As long as it's just us, but it's not a, you know, we don't need to work together. Does that work for you, Matt?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Councilwoman Napolitano.
Yes, the Shade Tree, tomorrow will be our Arbor Day celebration. It's at 1:30 at the Oxford Street School. They will be planting the tree, it's actually a tree replacement. Gordon's working on completing his annual accomplishment report that's required to keep the commission certified. And this year, we've started the second treatment of the emerald ash borer. We started that year before, it's every other year, it's a 3-step process, so we're in the second phase. They're also working on planting trees on 3rd Street, and they are replacement trees also. The Historic Commission is working on a brochure as an educational handout to new home owners and real estate agents, so they'll know the rules and regs of the Historic District, and they're also working on finalizing their mission statement. The Environmental Commission, they had a very busy weekend, very successful weekend. Let me just pull this up so I can get it correct. Tammy gave me the stats. They did a cleanup on Minnetonka and Ray Streets. They ended up with 17 volunteers. They broke into 3 groups, and I want to give you the results of what they did. If I need Charlie to help me out on this. Hold on. Tammy gave me. There we go. Okay, they collected 19 bags of trash, which equaled 350 pounds. They collected 4 pounds of phosphorus. They covered approximately 15 miles. They picked up...
1.5. I'm starting.
1.5.
1.5.
Oh, 1.5, that's right, you can't read. 15 sounded better. Is there, Tammy? I'm sorry. Okay, 1.5, I beg your pardon. Okay, lots of plastic, glass, clothes, tent poles, a space heater, and a microwave, even a bike wheel. So it goes to show that people are helping them. Thank you so much. Keeping It Real has been very successful. They've applied for an open space grant, their project being the Pollinator Prerogative. Strategies are to create a pollinator garden within the existing municipal open space. And they continue to work on other environmental initiatives. So thank you, and thanks for correcting me. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. In your absence, I was at the historic meeting.
Oh,
And
okay.
they brought up a couple concerns. One that was left open since 2017. I have addressed it with Joe Rossi. Joe Rossi has sent a letter to their secretary, Pat Butler. She should be forwarding to them shortly. Mr. Rossi would like to take a look at it and go over their concerns. Just so council knows, Mr. Rossi is going to look for an amendment to our sign ordinances. Right now, our sign ordinance does not cover historic specifically. Historic would like to get us on track with templates for signage for businesses and whatever. So Mr. Rossi is putting together a separate section on our sign ordinance that will actually dictate the historic district. He's actually going to reach out to you folks and have historic people meet him on a Friday morning to try to give him an hour if they can. He would like to know exactly what the perimeters of the historic district is so we can understand it better and move quickly on this and address the concerns that they had. Specifically, so these folks are putting a brilliant brochure together and they'd like to complete that. And that's something that we spoke about for quite a while, I think. And the theory is here, when people come into the town of Belvedere, the historic district wants them to be apprised that where the business district is, it's going to have a map. It's also going to have an application on it, am I correct? And it's going to go to any realtor within the courthouse or the historic district will get a copy of their brochure, actually a few copies of their brochures. So as they're showing the properties in the historic district, it gives them an overview of what to expect in the historic district, who to contact, get an application done ahead of time if they have any questions, so they can get ahead of the game. So when they're buying a house in the historic district and or property, there's no reason for them not to know to pick up the phone. And after reviewing it with Mr. Rossi, So that's pretty much what we've covered at your request, and he sent you a letter in that regards, and he's looking forward to meet with you guys and go around and address those issues. And he has been around looking at the 2 signs in question as well. Thank you very much, Lal.
Sure.
Councilwoman Myers.
Well, I've been working with Councilman McAteer and Attorney and Matt on the school resource officer after realizing that we were charging a flat rate without any immediate fees. So we're working on the details of that and trying to get a handle on how we want to set up the bid package for Fifth Street so we can move forward on that and get that done as soon as possible. That's it.
Kath, also, since you and I have been working on the foreclosure, just a quick update off for when I got an attorney sent me, asked me to have a redemption request set for the Ascent, for the Carter Page property.
Okay.
So that looks like it's going to be redeeming. That's not a huge
It did.
amount. It did redeem already?
2,900.
Great. So
That
that,
came in this morning.
that one's been taken care of, so it's another one off our list on that foreclosure. So as a result, I'm going to send yet another round of certifications to Rebecca to have that removed.
Okay.
And then I'll be in a position to go to final judgment on the last of our properties, which is the Boyston Estate.
Correct.
Everything else we've got redeemed, which is a pretty good track record. And I also spoke with Rebecca to get an updated tax foreclosure list, since she had a sale more than 6 months ago now. So she'll get that up to you guys. If you guys,
I usually check her in June.
if you guys decide to do it again, we can do it again. But just want to give you that update, since you and I have been working right on that.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for bringing that SRO issue to light so we can get that corrected, the school resource officer. I appreciate that. Councilman Roth.
The fire company had 14 calls in the month of March, which is an average month for them. 6 were actual fire calls, 4 were motor vehicle incidents, 2 electrical, 1 unusual odor, and the 1 was the landing zone, I guess, for Mrs. Jingles. I do not yet have a date for the new, for the dedication of the new fire truck. That's been put off until at least May, but there is a meeting tomorrow. They'll probably have something look at there, which I'll pass on to all of you. The EMT squad, emergency squad, for the month of March had 57 calls, and 8 might be classified as missed. Now, before I go any further, I do want to say that I personally got in touch with the 911 folks and asked them to do a run for me of all calls made in Belvedere for the month of March, and went through all of the documentation myself, only to cross-verify under the heading of better to know what the facts are, to preempt the impressions and casual talk that I hear much too much of surrounding the activities here. And I find out what I've learned from that and what the folks have been telling me at the spot, I'm meshed pretty closely. There were 8 missed calls, which is about 14%. I'm going to meet with them just to drill down a little deeper as to what actually happened in those calls. But I do want to say another thing, that the secondary response teams were out on site within 8 to 10 minutes. And so there must have been something set up that isn't reflected in the data that I'm giving to you. So nobody was suffering an unusual delay because of this. So the formation of the corporation, the Page Squad, that's still on hold with the state, not ours, but all. It was a first quarter moratorium, and from what I've been able to ascertain through our own squad and others, that's going to be ongoing. It looks like it could last for several months. That's a bit troubling. I think the squad is doing a yeoman's job doing the 24/7 coverage right now, but I also believe that it's being stretched. And while you might be able to run that pace for a couple of months, if this is going to last 8, 10, 12 months, I think that's going to be asking an awful lot of a bunch of dedicated folks. So I think we need to be talking about some alternatives and backup measures. The squad has already started to do that, and we'll be meeting with them, myself and Councilman McAteer, on Wednesday to explore these options just to ensure that Belvedere gets proper coverage. That's it on the emergency squad for the moment. Center, I saw in the correspondence that the minutes were passed, so I'm not going to spend much time on the community center, other to point out a couple of things. Number one, the minutes indicated that a brand new security system was put in by the ham radio folks, and I think that's terrific. It was done at nominal cost, they all volunteered, and I think it was a job well done by everybody involved. I happened to talk to one of the ham radio folks that was involved, I didn't know that, but at the time, and they were just so excited that they did this and it's working, and the optimism is infectious. I think it's terrific, and it's a great project, well done, so thank you very much. Also, I ask you again to review the minutes and look at all the activities they are doing and all the activities they're planning. There's no stopping these folks, so I think they're a real asset to the community, and that's very good. So one other item that they did ask me to look into was getting a tree trimmed on a property, and I talked with Adam, and he was going to have the DPW take a look at it. Okay?
No, you got my message.
Oh, yeah. So that was it for the community. So. Pool Commission. There was 3 items that came up at the Pool Commission meeting at our last session. One was a misunderstanding, I believe, about a possible advance from the Quezon Development folks, and I've cleared that up, and that won't be forthcoming now. That's not something that's going to happen. Secondly, they asked about the lights in the parking lot, and I did some investigation and found that they are in the responsibility of JCP&L, and so we gave a notice to the police folks to ask JCP&L to fix them. I don't know if it's been done, but I will follow up to make sure it's done before the opening in May. And the third issue was the appointment of a 5th commissioner,
Which we'll do tonight.
We'll talk about that. Okay? So that's it on the pool, and they're also getting together tomorrow night. We'll be getting together with them and Councilman Tucker. Public utilities, we briefly mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. We are going to do a pilot using LED lighting on 13 consecutive lights on a string of poles. We've picked the pilot to run from approximately the theater on Greenwich Street down to the traffic light and make a light, and almost all the way down to Stackles. And that's about 13 light poles in succession. So it'll give a good representation of what this might do for the community, both in a residential and in the business neighborhood. I'm waiting to hear back from JCP&L on their tech people who put together the pilot project for us. They're going to be coming back to us and asking us now to set up town meetings to make the folks know and ask for the town's input on what they think of all these lights. And at the next council meeting, I would appreciate if you gave that some thought on how best to get the town people involved in this and give us their comments and feedbacks on what they think about the process, okay? That's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the report on the squad. I have one recommendation for you, based on the facts that you just explained. You're getting the feeling that they have their absences covered already, which I know that's what they do. If they're not going to be able to handle a call, they pre-set it up. And I know they've done it before. You may want to ask them if they need, specific coverage. You said it's going to be 7-8 months, possibly.
It could very well be.
So I think they continue the way they are, and if they need a, night covered, maybe they can preempt them that they're not going to be there that night, certain days during the week, to give them a little bit of a break so they're not stressed.
And that's my concern, is give them
To give them a break, so maybe what they can do is reach out from a time from 6 a.m. to 3 a.m. several days a week and preset it to be covered ahead of time, to give them a break.
And I think the daytime hours are the most difficult to get the coverage for.
Exactly.
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 And ask them to keep doing it. I think eventually they're going to run out of the ability to keep up with it.
Right, agree. Reference the camera equipment for the community center. I had understood it was all done. Thank you very much, guys. Brilliant job. My recommendation to Mark was to have limited access into that room, and it is a security camera. So I would think the only people that would have access it would be Belvedere PD, which which I understand they can do right from headquarters, correct? Chief?
Still working on that part, but
Okay.
yes, we will.
All right. And limited members, I don't think there's really reason for anybody else to have access to the security camera and games, because again, it's there for the protection and safety of our children and our adults. So, tree trimming, the pool, you reached out to me a week or so ago, I believe it was you, said there was a light pole there that needed the.
It's done, it's done.
I went to,
Correct, that's been trimmed back by Nelson, those 2 trees. I may want to have you consider having JCP&L put 2 LED lights there first. If
he
you want.
can't do it.
He can't do it.
I tried that,
Okay.
okay, so he can't do it. Maybe once we move further down the road.
Okay.
on it.
Okay, but right now we
I
can't.
tried that, yeah.
Okay, and there is a new sheriff in the town. John Johnson is your new contact for Elizabethtown Gas, and I'll be forwarding that information to you.
Okay.
John Johnson takes care of all the businesses and whatnot, and his assistant Mo takes care of the residential work. And I'll give that.
Yeah, just forward that to me, and I'll reach out and say hello.
Yes, sir. Councilman Tucker.
Just with Councilman Raw, the idea with the lights, I guess that's a non-issue then. You have to have them in a certain area, because I was going to say, I know I spoke with Chief about lighting in town, how that would help to deter problems. Now, I don't know if that's a possibility or.
Well, the whole purpose of the pilot is to get the town's input as to what the people think about these lights. I mean,
Right, I hear that.
and once it is, we'd like to move ahead.
Right, well, I'm just looking from the point of view, kill 2 birds, 1 stone. If you could get the lights put up and have them put up maybe where Chief knows that we could use the lighting to help deter crime, I mean, it'd be a win-win situation. I mean, if you present it that way, I mean, Chief,
I think we fixed all the light issues. As soon as you took care of the one in the park, that resolved 90% of the issues.
there's no other areas though where you could say that there's areas that if you can light it up a little more, that may take care. Well, something's food for thought. They're not doing it this week or next week, so. I mean, I go with the idea. Lights, I think, do work to deter. I mean, we talked about it, deter crime, so something to think about for what it's worth.
Councilman, can I interject there just real quick, just for a second, just to help you out a little bit also? One of the reasons they're going to do the prototypes right now with the LED lights, they don't have a lot of LED lights out there right now that have direct down lighting, so they cast quite a bit of lumens out there. Those who live on Water Street down towards the bridge live with the effect, once they put those new poles in, it almost looked like a landing strip with those LED lights in, and we had people that couldn't sleep at night. They felt that it was a little bit over-invasive. So this is why Stan Prater recommended to do a couple mock-ups in a specific area, have a meeting with the public, direct the public down to these specific areas, and find out if it was overly offensive or not, or if they have to come up with some type of particular scale. So that is all in the works. I'm sorry.
The lights are more broad than specific?
Correct.
Okay, I thought they were specific. All right, pool recreation, I did get a recap. Yes, we are going to have a meeting tomorrow night. I did get a recap from Ms. Howard as far as what they're looking at, what they're working on. Water testing has been initiated. They're having the septic pumped out and inspected. Budget was submitted at the CFO, and it says here, increased minimum was, and for $2,700 for lawn mowing allocation, and working with the Lions Club for 2020 for a possible pavilion project, and she also mentioned they are looking for members for the pool recreation to help out, so if there's anybody that you know is interested, they're looking for members, so we appreciate that. Recreation is working on the summer recreation program, and Board of Education, I don't know, Mayor, if you want to make some comments on it. The highlight, I think, of that meeting, as I know you made comments on it, was the $32,000 that was voted on. They were looking to possibly give it back in decrease in our taxes, and it was voted down, so I don't know if you have any comments.
Not at this time. I will later on in the meeting.
So that was unfortunately defeated, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, I think I just got maybe two items. One is, Mr. Anthony, how was the trip?
That was good.
It was good? Had a good time? Good. One of our students here was off to France, correct? Paris?
Ireland, England, and Wales.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Good, so they all came back safely, thank God for that. The other item is, I just want to touch bases, I want to thank Adam for reaching out to the county. He was able to, we're also, you can report to PUMA, Adam was able to get a few caps for the manhole covers that have holes in them. It's an underlid that goes under the lid that will keep water from going in the top of the manhole
That's good.
in a few areas. So Adam and Jason is working on that diligently, so thank you very much for addressing the water infiltrating issue. Although I think that's part of it, I don't think it's the major part of it. I think we have several people, and I'll say this very clear, I think we have several people within Water Street, both the west side and east side, that's pumping water into their sewer and not out to the street. We're going to start taking some pretty aggressive action on that. I believe we also may have an area down on Independence Street near the Pop and Daisy as well, on some of the lower homes and basements over there. As we go around and check them, we're going to find out more and more, so we are going to be sending letters to these individuals to let them know we're addressing it. That was a big concern with, PUMA, and I want to make sure we address that right away. With that, I will move on to, does council have anything else in general? No. I will move on to previous business, which I have none.
Correspondence.
Correspondence, go ahead. Oh, yeah, Ted, you want to start first?
Yeah, the first item is a street closure request for the Veterans Recognition Ceremony on May 3rd.
Council have any problems with that? It's the annual one they do at the War Memorial. Okay.
Do we need a motion?
Motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed?
The second item was a letter from York County Planning regarding the US bike route. They provided a resolution, which I didn't include in here, but if you'd like to support them in this effort, then I can have it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
The third item was basically an FYI regarding the resurfacing the mayor referred to earlier of 620, Route 620, which comes from the top of the hill around the corner down Water Street. So they've requested, they're going to actually notify all the homeowners because someone from the engineer's office contacted me for a list from the assessor, which they received, so all those people will be notified of this project. That's really all I know about it right now.
Okay. And the last item, Community Center at Belvedere request regarding council liaison. The Community Center has requested a change in their liaison. I'm going to ask Councilman Roth, if council approves it, to take on the senior role as liaison to the Belvedere Community Center. If council has no objections, I need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, I have some comments.
Yes.
Because I see Mr. Young's here in the audience, and I know I made comments before, but I think they're worth repeating. I guess notice there weren't any problems up until the point when I questioned about the billing. And Mr. Young, if you could recall, I can picture you standing here when the community center was first being proposed, and a comment, and I'd like to quote that it wasn't going to cost the town of Belvedere residents a dime. Now, you're absolutely right, it's not costing us a dime. The current bill that we're going to be approving tonight for just the heating alone is $983.45. Now, where am I coming from? I think there has to be a financial responsibility on the part. If you're going to tell us, and again, I feel that I felt misled, the people have felt that they were misled. You're telling us it was going to cost a dime to the taxpayer, and now we got bills, and that's just one of them, besides the $620 for sewer, the electric, and so forth and so on. So let me finish. I had a problem with. The community center still listed under the library. I still have a problem with that because it's not the library. And as you mentioned at the one meeting I did attend, that you were able to get a waiver because it was under, I think it was for Wi-Fi, because it was under the library. I think we should be above board with all our dealings. And, well, lastly, let's see here. Oh, lastly, I know, Chief, we had talked about it, Mayor, brought it to your attention, and somebody just brought it to my attention again. And this is that whether it's, Chief, I know we talked about baseball, soccer, football, you name it, in our town, that whoever participates, meaning adults that are working with children, let's say under the age of 18, they have to have background checks. Now, getting back to the community center of Belvedere, Chief, I mentioned to you, Mayor, I mentioned to you several times, that has that been done? Do we have background checks for the men and women who are working with our children that are under the ages of 18? I mean, I leave that there. So that's where I'm coming from. Again, I'm here to serve the town residents, best interest of the town residents. Now, am I against the community center?
Yes.
Mr. Young, I think you've done an excellent job. An excellent job. I see the programs and so forth. But having said that, let me just bring up one other thing that I do have noted here that somebody brought to my attention. Now, the website for the community center sometimes may not be updated with the different functions that are going on. Now, I don't know whether there's a problem or whatever, but I'll throw it out for what it's worth. Again, the bottom line is financial responsibility, between, let's say, our different areas, and here being the community center, which, again, our taxpayers are paying for. It was trying to meet, a viable, a positive link between the two. I'm sure people don't mind, but then, again, they do care how the money's being spent. So that's all the comments I have.
Thank you very much for your comment. We have a motion on the floor and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilman McAtoy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Myers.
Yes.
Councilwoman Napolitano.
Yes.
Councilman Roth.
Yes, I understand.
Councilman Tucker.
No, I have to abstain also because I'm the one who's being replaced.
Councilman Zmigrodzki.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes. I have no previous business at this time. New business, landlord registration. I'll just touch bases on this real quick. This is something that I researched out. I knew we had something in place on this. It's an ordinance that I haven't even given the town attorney yet, sorry. But I'm just going to touch this. Everybody will be getting a copy of this for the next meeting. I did forward a copy, Charlie, I'm sorry, to the chief on this registration. But everybody will be getting a copy. We'll discuss it at the next meeting. The just of this is going to serve us two different ways. It's a landlord rental registration. Anybody that rents property within the town of Belvedere moving forward out-of-town landlords, anybody that rents properties within the town of Belvedere, and this was approved by our previous attorney, just so you know, but you can look at it.
That might be good.
Oh, yeah. But basically, here's the gist of it. What really piqued my interest was few months ago, we had a loss of life in the town of Belvedere. An individual took their own life, and there was a 10-year-old child involved, which, thank God, is okay, but witnessed it. And we were reaching out to who we thought a property owner was, but it turns out that that property owner has sold that property to new people. We didn't have that contact information. So what we want to do is every out-of-town landlord will now register their building. There will be a registration fee of $25 paid by that owner of that property. Now, whether they recoup it from the tenant or prospective tenants, up to them. It's a big issue, I think, for the police department because they want to know who's in these buildings, how many people are in the building. So I won't say a whole lot of it. If it's 3 or more apartments, it'll be $10 per apartment registration fee. I've already met with Joe Rossi, our code enforcer. He's totally on board with it. He knows it's going to take a little while to build this plan. But also what it will do is when occupants leave an apartment, the new renter will have to be named to the town in this process, so we know who the new people are in. But more importantly, we want to make sure smoke detectors and the proper CO and everything is approved for the apartment. I won't name names. I have a situation we're dealing with on Mansfield Street now, that a property was just sold 3 months ago. I met with the landlord because I happen to know him. They're not renting out business space with residents. They made him go up on the 2nd floor. It was supposed to be a single mom with 2 kids and a part-time boyfriend. Well, it turns out it's a single mom with the old and new boyfriend and 3 kids. So now we have 6 people occupied in that residence, and it's a very difficult situation. So without me spending a whole lot of time, please take the time to read it when the clerk sends it to you. Immediately send any responses that you have back to Councilman McAtoor or the chief, so they know what your feelings are, and then Councilman McAtoor, the chief, can reach out to Mr. Rossi, the code enforcer. But this will give us a good way to get some of our our in-town landlords, we have no problem with. They respect that they take care of their homes, their kids, and stuff like that. More times than not, 99% of the time, it's the people that don't live in the town. They just want a monthly check mailed to their bank at the first of the year, and then they never visit it, unless something, catastrophic happens. So we really think this is going to take care of a lot of things, and it's really going to help our PD. So that's what that one is. I need a motion and a second to approve Victorian Days insurance coverage again, the same as we did last year.
Motion?
Second.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, this isn't something new, right? Something,
No, it's not. It's the same coverage that they had last year. They can't come under our umbrella coverage because we do have someone that sits on their committee. So we're, as Sharon's explained in the past, they fall under our umbrella coverage for liability.
so it's for the Saturday and the Sunday.
Right.
And Sharon, can you tell us what the cost of that is roughly?
There is no cost.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Fireworks, this will be our 5th year honoring your dad.
4th year.
Fourth year honoring former Councilman Howard Thompson. We will do it again at National Light Out. Linda, do you have any issue? Are we okay with doing it again?
It's run smoothly every year,
Okay.
and people like both events, so
Both of it, correct.
I think it's been a
All right.
positive addition to National Night Out.
Thank you for your support. We do have fundraiser letters going out to my normal people. We are sending a letter out to Mayor Herb and the White Township Committee again, inviting their sense, it works out very well. So if that's okay with everybody, can I have a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
Questions or comments?
What's the cost for the fireworks?
Same as it did last year, $6,500.
Do we know how much we took in fundraiser versus how much?
I do not have that information.
Again, I was a service.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
Councilman McAtory.
Yes.
Councilwoman Myers.
Yes.
Councilwoman Napolitani.
Yes.
Councilman Roth.
Yes.
Councilman Tucker.
No.
Councilman Grodzki.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes. Approval of raffle license application RL 2019-09, Warren County American Legion. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
Motion.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution number R 2019-X24, a resolution authorizing return of premiums for Block 49, Lot 4.08.
Motion.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Is that on the, that's on the bill list, correct?
Don't know.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
It is? Okay.
Is that the,
What is that?
what do you call it? Purchase order 23549?
No. It's 23530.
23530?
Premium.
600.
600.
So basically, sometimes at tax sales, if the property is sufficiently valuable to potential investors, they give it an auction situation, basically. And they'll not only bid what the taxes are owed on the property, they'll bid a premium, so they actually overpay for the benefit of getting the certificate. If that certificate is redeemed before they foreclose it, then we have been paid all of our taxes, but the premium paid for the certificate is refunded. That's what this is. So we're not losing any money, we're simply refunding an additional premium that we got sometime.
And that was for where again?
Lot 49, lot 4.08, wherever that is.
Where's that?
I don't know.
Lot
This is
49.
this is the way that the tax collector gives it to me as block and lot.
Right.
I don't have a street address. She's never put a street address in, so it's been block and lot.
It's not discretionary, it's mandatory that the premium is refunded, just so you guys know. Nothing we can do.
You have a motion, second, please.
Just wanted to make sure. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yeah, I abstain.
I'll entertain a motion for the appointment of Mo Hart to the Belvedere Pool Commission.
Motion.
Second.
I'm sorry, what was that name?
Mo, M-O, capital, Hart, H-A-R-T.
Okay, that's what I heard, but I'm thinking she has.
M-O, and not N-O, M-O.
No, I'm saying, I think she has a
Okay.
real name. She's a
All right.
Maureen.
Overco, O-V-E-R-K-O.
And that was pool, right?
Pool, yes, very early. So I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I'll entertain a motion to pay the bills.
And motion to pay the bills as presented.
I'll second that.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question.
1731.
All right, yeah, because I was just wondering, it didn't have the amount on, oh, yes. Oh, yeah, it does. Wait a minute, Stuart Lash, you said?
Lasher, Lasher.
Okay, just give me a, please be aware of that.
It's
Yeah,
it's an S, it's under S, it's for Stewart.
Yeah, yeah, here it is, premiums. Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to our second public.
We got to vote on this, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have a motion in a second.
Anybody else? I'm lost. My apologies.
I still do have one other question. If it's okay, Mr. Young's here.
Only
If
if
it's
it's on,
okay,
only if it's on the bill list.
It's on the bill list. Yes, it is on the bill list. And it was one, maybe I should have brought it up earlier, but since we're on the bill list, it's under Michelle Bea, right? And just a quick question. I noticed that, she's the yoga instructor. And is it $28 she gets, is that per session, per hour?
It depends. The agreement that we have with Michelle B.A. is that each class that she takes, depending upon attendance, which can vary, 50% goes to her, 50% goes to the community center. So if it's only $28, obviously it was a very small class. There are certain times when that number is larger because the place is full. So it just varies from class to class.
So that's why it would show up maybe sometimes where she might have got $10 at the beginning when she started?
Possibly. It might show that she gets $100, you know.
Right, okay. All right, and the only other last question is, I just noticed the last two times on the bill list, that I've noticed that she used to put in a deposit slip to Valley National, which the past two times I haven't seen a deposit slip. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't a deposit slip issued, but it was interesting as I was following it, it would have her name, and it would have how much she got paid, but then stapled to it was a deposit slip for Valley National.
Right, well, what the deposit to Valley National would be for an entire, an entire deposit for that time period.
Which is?
It could be, let's say every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, gotcha.
Those come into Christine. Christine makes the deposit slip, and if they don't cross in a time frame, it's not necessarily going to be attached to it.
And then so she
Christine
gets,
has them.
So what we put on the deposit slip is we will put CCFB X amount of dollars. So we know if there's $100 that's being deposited, that possibly $60 will go to CCFB. $40 might go to Michelle Bihé, which covers the $100 that has been accounted for, that is being deposited at that time. Now, there might be other things on there too. In the past, we had 2 or 3 other yoga teachers. They have moved on to other employment or retirement. So now Michelle is our main person. She might have a replacement now and again, but she's there very consistently. But the agreement with Michelle has always been from day one that we would give, she would take 50% of each class and give the other 50% to the community center.
okay, which I also have, and again, a quick question, because I know it was brought up at a meeting about the, how much you had in reserve, which in February 28th, when I attended your meeting, there was $5,217.53. And this current memo I got from you shows that there's $2,508.77. And again, out of that, that's,
Well,
expensive.
what our treasurer was showing is the fact that, first of all, the mayor said that is in the overall account. It's not the CCFB at B account only. I mean, we deposit money in towards the greater account. There was a discrepancy of nearly $1,000 from what the CFO had on her numbers vis-a-vis what we had on ours. So until that is settled, we erred on our side, so we took that away from what we showed as our total in the banking account. Not in our banking account, in the banking account.
All right, thank you. And a last comment, and I guarantee it's the last one. I just noticed I haven't seen past two bills, anything for fuel for vehicles for Steckel. Bills for gasoline.
Gasoline doesn't show up on every bill, Mr. Tucker.
No, I understand that, but I've yet to, past two bills, haven't seen it.
Okay, we'll be patient, they'll be coming.
Well, Ian, why do I bring it up? I don't just bring it up because I don't have anything better to do, because last time I looked, we were pushing close to 8,000, and that was my comment that I made for correction, that, I have a concern about when we're carrying arrears, and that's a pretty stiff arrears for fuels. There's
We're
like
not-
Hey, Walt, if I can make one comment on that, and I don't know if it's relevant, but we also have fleet shell cards. The bank provider for Shell fleet switched,
That's right.
so it could be why maybe you haven't
There's
seen
been
it.
a little lag because of they went to a different bank,
Yeah.
provider. So they went to Wex Bank, and so there's some, just
Hey, you
procedural stuff.
were going to make a comment on the use of the term arrears.
Yeah, we are not in the arrears with any.
Roll call, please.
Councilman McIntyre.
Yes.
Councilwoman Myers.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Valentine.
Yes.
Councilman Hahn.
Yes.
Councilman Tucker.
No.
Councilman Stagrodsky.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes. Okay, again, I don't have to quote the amount. It's whatever you wish, folks, public comment. You don't need to come up, just stand up, give us your name. If you can't stand, just give us your name. Show of hands, please, public comment. Mr. Thompson.
Hey, just for our information, I haven't been through the last several meetings, but what is the yearly expense to the town of the community center?
I think you asked Mr. Young,
I don't have it on me, I wasn't prepared for that.
I'm sure Mr. Young will provide that to you before the next meeting. if you
All
like.
right, we'll check.
And just for the benefit of the public who may not be aware of this, the community center is basically, the way we set it up, it's a subcommittee of our township government. So it's not a separate entity, it's not a separate, there was some discussion very early on of this being a separate, distinct 501c3 entity or something, but that's not the way we ultimately went. So these bills that are getting paid are being paid for the building that we own, and all the money generated by the community center and all the monies it pays out are managed by our CFO and are audited by our auditor. So there seems to be some type of confusion on the part of people, and I don't know, Mr. Tucker, whether you share that as well, but this is not some type of donation we give to an entity that's not a part of our governing body. It is a part of our governing body. They report to us, we regulate them. They're actually an advisory board only. They can't spend any money without our approval. Every time they want to spend any type of serious money, they come ask us. So I just wanted to make that clear for everybody here, that that's the way this is set up. And as I said, every single bill is for a building that you guys actually own. It is the former library building, but we didn't donate it to anybody. You still own it. You could do whatever you want with it, but you're elected to go with this use, which seems to be getting a lot of use, but just wanted to clear the air on that.
For me and probably many residents, it's like the enjoyment that all the people in here have coming into the municipal building and sitting here with the lights up. It's something that everybody should enjoy and not a bowling alley. So
Let me repeat myself from a meeting or two ago, Mr. Thompson, just to give you just a quick overview. The money that the town of Belvedere uses to sponsor our community center and or our scout home or any entity, tax point, or one point is $12,700. So it's under, a little bit less under one tax point. Well, what does that break down to? That breaks down to approximately $1.25 a month to a taxpayer in the town of Belvedere, per our auditor at the last, during the preliminary introduction of the budget. So it's costing a taxpayer anywhere from $12 to $15 a year to support our children, our seniors, to keep them safe, to keep them off the road, whatever have you. So that's about what it equates to. So that's what we do. That's my, what I call our feel-good contribution to a town that does pay out taxes. Can't argue that, and I won't argue that. Although we've done a phenomenal job reversing that and turning the corner now. We've given back sewer reductions twice in the last 3 years. For this first time this year, we're actually lowering the municipal tax. So that should show well with the county lowering their tax. Unfortunately, I didn't have much success with the school board, as much as I thought I would anyway. So, and then you've got to take in the fact the things that the community center does. They took it upon their own to want to go out and ask for a grant for the community center, similar to what Mrs. Stettler did years ago for lighting or foundation work or whatever have you. Mark wanted to continue on by having the old historic floors redone. He was awarded a grant this year for $4,000 from the county, which is not costing the taxpayers money. They've already banked and know on the side of that they have a $1,600 contribution that they have to put towards that, which they're prepared to do as well. Not to mention the flat screen TV that they have installed for seminars, the computers, the security lights, and I can go on and tell you how many thousands of dollars that the community center has raised in exchange on doing all this stuff on their own, rather than creating the burden to the taxpayer. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an overview of what's going on. I had a motion and a second for the bills. Can I get a roll? Got a roll?
You got a roll call now.
Okay.
Can I just make a comment? Mayor, you brought up
Yes.
comments, and council brought up something, and it made me think, and I'll put it out towards Mr. Benbrook and Mr. Young. We have an individual that is getting monies. She's getting paid. Are we taking out federal and state taxes on that?
That would be up to the CFO. Generally speaking, for amounts that we pay that type of individual, it's probably 1099. I'm quite sure we don't W-2 an employee.
She's responsible for
But
it.
she's responsible for that.
Hypothetically, I can tell you Mrs. Behey, if I recall, Mr. Young, Mrs. Behey made upwards of $5,000 or $6,000 last year, half and 50% of that which she donated back to the community center to be able to do the things they have done. I know for a fact she gets a 1099 form, so we're not in any litigation or any potential issues or accusations of stealing money or misappropriating money.
Mayor, can I just make, because you brought up the issue of the...
I didn't bring up an issue, but go ahead.
No, you brought up the Boy Scout, and I wasn't sure whether Mr. Smickle or Mrs. Smickle was going to bring it up.
Well, why don't we give them a chance to do that during public comment? Okay. Second public comment, does anybody have anything to do with public comment?
Yeah, my thought with the community center, they open up for my Keeping It Real program every Sunday. If they start to have to pay their utilities, are they going to then charge me to rent the space? Which then I'm going to come back to council and say, can you pay the rental space for me to the town's community center?
Listen, it's real simple, Mrs. Coogan. I'll make it and I'll say it publicly. We are so fortunate to have the situation we have right now with the community center and or our scout home. Very fortunate, because I'm sure everybody sitting on this council has many, many, many other things to do with their families and their grandchildren and whatnot, other than micromanaging a community center or micromanaging a scout home. Again, I get back to the heart of respecting this community, respecting the culture, and respecting the people that want to volunteer to help. Are we visual? Yeah, we're visual, absolutely. Is somebody going to make a mistake? Sure, possibly going to happen. But I don't for a second think that anybody in this organization sitting up here or volunteers out there are abusing their powers or their situations. And do I have any other public comment? Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
We did meet with Mr. Tuck at the Scout Home. We voiced our concerns. He voiced his concerns. I feel comfortable working with Councilman Zambrowski. We know we have some problems over there we'd like to address. One of them being the heating system. The second being the Scout Home has no covering around the back. It's open, so we get a lot of cold air. Councilman Zambrowski had some ideas that we're going to work on before next winter, hopefully to cut the cost of the heating down. The building isn't easy to warm.
It's not efficient.
It's hard to get insulation in there because we looked into the study in that building. Some go this way, some go this way. See, it's not like you can blow a hole in and blow insulation in there. It's almost impossible to do. DPW did come in there before we put the new roof and the new siding on and insulate the ceiling. I know Gerald Metzger and John Snyder and I forget who else climbed up in through a hole in the back of the building and went in there and spread insulation. So the ceiling is insulated, but it's an old building and it's hard to heat.
Understand. 100 years plus of great times. Mrs. Beal.
Well, first of all, I'd like to applaud you for your action on the landlord registration. I think you can eliminate a lot of problems by doing that. And I'm not being complimentary of Phillipsburg. However, I understand they have a program in Phillipsburg where every apartment is inspected every year, and the landlord pays the town a fee for having that done.
And the same thing will happen here. It'll be a $25 fee for
What,
everybody,
for
every
inspecting
apartment.
or for registration?
No, if you have 2 apartments every year, re-register, it'll be $25.
What about inspecting them?
Well, that's why we're gonna go over the ordinance.
Correct, that's fine, that's fine.
We definitely need some tweaking. We've had the ordinance for quite a while, and I know Linda Stetler can tell you because I think she was mayor at the time. The problem was that it was very cumbersome, and quite frankly, I just didn't have the time to oversee it and police it. So, the chief brought it to our attention, and we really need to do, so we're gonna take what we have and maybe add or delete something in it to make it more workable and maybe break down the duties a little bit of who's responsible for what in this ordinance to make it workable for us. We all have small staff.
Oh, now I understand that, but
And-
since money is always such an important
Right.
That may
item,
become part of it.
yeah,
I-
and it works well for them, they make a heck of a lot of money.
I've read Phillipsburg's when we were initially doing this, so.
And I'd like to just also say that I believe that any expense for the Scout Home is well worth it when you consider the usage it gets, the number of Eagle Scouts this town has had, and the work that's being done there. I think it's more than worth what's being spent.
Thank you. We always have options to improve, so if we can improve, we certainly will.
Can I make a comment? Or is there somebody else who's one?
Mr. Young.
I'm sorry.
You can go ahead, I mean, that's fine.
No, go ahead and I'll come back to Scout Home.
Well, I just wanted to respond to what you just said, Mr. Tutko, about the fact that you had the time to go back and look at a video from,
I'm sorry, what?
like a video of the tape of a meeting where I said that it wasn't going to cost the town.
I wrote it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Well, that's great. I vaguely remember saying that, but I think that was a place and a time when we didn't really know what the community center was going to be, that it would have potential and growth from out of what We started with Reba and the group of people at the church. Maybe I was naive. I never had been a part of creating a community center in a town before. I literally started with Googling and prayer to try to find the right path to go to try to accomplish something that I think the town would be proud of. The fact that I want to reiterate too what the mayor said. Everyone that is sitting on this row, pretty much, or any row here, are volunteers. You know, we do it for the betterment of the town that we live in. Because we care. You know, we care. We care about our seniors. We care about our adults. We care about our young children. And we try to do the best we can with what we're given to work with. We know our budgets are either nil or limited, so we do the best that we can. Regarding the billing at the community center, as it has been said numerous times, this is a municipal building. It's a building that the town owns. As I said from the very beginning, thank you so much for letting us be stewards of this building, for the well-being of this building, so this building didn't sit empty and rot away. So we brought life into it, and as we all know, sometimes life costs a little bit of money. But whether we were in there or not, the police records are in the basement, there are things that in the town in the attic. So it's a multi-use building. As Tammy said, we also invite other commissions in there, as well as groups to come in, at no cost. At no cost. Another thing I want to address is the Comcast bill. To make sure that you don't feel that we're being unethical in any way, the Comcast bill has been switched over to the community center. It does not list or make reference to the free public library. It's now...
Still, a lot of bills are still coming through under library.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you didn't.
That one is not anymore.
They'll probably take a while for it.
That's not anymore. I'm not sure what other bills come to the library, but I just want to make sure that people, and Kevin has been very eloquent in explaining this whole situation, how this was set up from the beginning, you know, how we are incorporated within the town as a commission. And I know that you stated once at our meeting that you had some anonymous taxpayers that were really concerned about all of the money that's being spent because of this community center that had 5,000 people come through the door in 1 year, man. 5,000 people. Some of them paid, most of them did not. And they had a hell of a good time. They learned things. They were not isolated. They were out amongst friends, making new friends, meeting new neighbors. It had a win-win situation. So, am I a little, I don't know, heated about this? Sure. I've devoted 2 years of my life to this. 2 years. You know? So, and a lot of other people have devoted many more years than I have to other things here in town. And I applaud every one of them. Every one of them. This is a caring town. It's a caring town.
And if I could just, you brought up a good point about senior citizens, and that's where I think I'm coming from. We have senior citizens that can't afford their medicine, can't afford their heat, can't afford food, can't afford electricity. Why? Because it's tax. Every little piece of the pie adds up, and that's where I'm coming from. Now, if I may, I'll come over to the point of the Scout Home, and I want to thank Mr. Smickle, Mrs. Smickle for getting people together and the dialogue that took place. I just want to bring up a couple of points, and maybe you can understand where I am coming from. Because as I mentioned at the meeting, I was in scouting in the 60s and 60s, let's say, and 5 sons have been involved with Royal Rangers for the better part of my life. I'm not against scouts. I'm not against the Scout Home. Billing, I think that, again, I can't say or stress it enough. I feel very obligated by the townspeople to look and see where we can save and not be frivolous with the monies. Having said that, specifically with the Scout Home, I guess the main point, and Mr. Smickle, you brought it up, and matter of fact, Mr. Smickle, you're the one who mentioned, and I thought very interesting, that even when you set the heat in a Scout Home at 75 degrees, the boys still had to wear coats. And you also mentioned that if you look at the windows with the curtains, that you could actually...
It's the old windows with the curtains.
Yeah,
The wind blew
yeah,
through.
there's new windows.
That's why
At
you
no
all made,
expense to the
and when they
town.
come and caulk the windows, I thought, why do you want to caulk the windows? There's nothing wrong with the new windows. It was the old windows that we replaced at our expense.
Right, well, Ben Ritter and I were out there looking at them, and he even made a comment that he put strips or to caulk them. So, for what it's worth, they need caulking, the ones we looked at. Secondly, it was the young lady at Best, I think it was Miss Bellick, mentioned that when they camp inside the building, on the floor, it's like a sheet of ice. To which you reply, well, you know, the back of the building on the bottom underneath is not closed off, it's not insulated. Took a look out back, and Mr. Melchior made some comments about we got animals going under here and so forth, and that the boiler needs to be replaced. Now here's where I'm coming from. If, as like Mayor says, if somebody had done their due diligence, I know you also say don't micromanage, but here's where I'm coming from. If we did what needed to be done, caulk the windows, taking care of the insulation underneath the floor, blocked off so the wind wouldn't shoot under there, so you wouldn't have any animals going under there, be insulated, I would venture to say that the savings on the heating oil would be substantial in several years, to the point that we might be able to afford to replace the old boiler, which I would recommend going into a heat/air conditioning pump, which would sit on one end of the wall and shoot the heat right across the whole room. And that could have possibly been taken care of if the issue of insulation, caulking, whatever else was taken care of. But, and again, I brought it up at the meeting, do we wait until it breaks and then have to rush to get it done? And yes, you said I offered to caulk the windows. Well, I paid for whatever needed to be done, and Councilman Zimbrowski, if it's okay, I'd like to be involved with this project, because as I mentioned at the meeting, I know somebody that could possibly help us out, do a thorough a building structure audit, and tell us what we can or can't do, and what the savings is, and let's get it done before winter so we can start seeing the savings. And then, you know, the boys don't have to wear coats or whatever inside, and our town can see a savings. That's where I'm coming from.
When you're talking about we're gonna put new insulation in, who's we?
Okay, all right, let me, Councilman Myers, did you want to say something before me?
No, go right ahead.
No, go right now, please.
Just be reminded that all the improvements that you are just listed, Mr. Tucker, are the responsibility of the town of Bellevue, because we do own that building.
I think there's also been a discussion that, you know, as we look forward to having gas on Parker Street, replacing the boiler with an oil burner would be
Right, and
you said.
when Councilman Roth gets that email from him, from me, he will understand that they did walk Parker Street today, as well as bringing it all the way out.
That's good.
But I'm going to forward that information to him, that will be a home run.
I think that's-
And not for nothing, without, I'm going to try not to be obnoxious or rude or Ray, so please forgive me for this. But I had the luxury of not being a scout, but putting my kids through scouts and sending them up to, by the Delaware Water Gap. And I thought one of the things that Cub Scouts and the Scouts did was prepare these kids for outdoor life. I mean, it's nice for them to be into a scout home without a hut with open signs. And I thought part of the process was to adapt the kids to knowing how to get their badges and how to live in camping in the outdoors, either during the winter time, spring or summertime. Maybe it's changed from them. Maybe we need to send them to said, as putting 5 kids through this, he knows there's also a parent responsibility in learning the book and teaching the children how to adapt and how to prepare as well. So I'm sure he understands that, but maybe he forgot that. That is a part of scouting.
What Mrs.
What?
Billick was referring to was herself,
I
not the
understand,
boys.
I understand. As we get older, we do get chilly a little
Yeah.
quicker,
Yeah.
you know. That's all I have to say about that situation. And I will give a challenge to Mr. Tucker because he's repeated himself several times on this same issue about seniors needing prescriptions or what, okay? And as I alluded to in the past, it's roughly $12 a year to give the feel-good responsibilities I think we have to scouting or whatever have you. So, Mr. Tucker, I want you to feel free to provide me the name of all the seniors that need that $12 for prescription, and I will personally write a check out of the money, the $188 a year, a month, that I get paid to sit up here and do this. I will personally write a check out to those seniors for the $12.
For $12?
That's what it is a year for that scene to provide for the scout home, to provide for our community center. That's what it works out to. So feel free to give me a list of those people that you obviously are communicating to, that you're representing and have an issue with. I will gladly write a check out to those individuals. And I sympathize with you. I'm not being smart. I sympathize with you. But when we sit up here on council, this council makes the very best decision they can for this community as a whole. We don't look at an agenda, but a certain age group. We do make very difficult situations here. So I appreciate your thought on the seniors that need their medication. I will wholeheartedly, contribute to that. I have no problem with that. But I'm not going to ignore our scouts, our Cubs, our community, or anybody else. All I'm asking for you to consider is equal opportunity for everybody. Go ahead.
That's great.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I think Councilman Tucker's point is well taken. We own the building, and we have an obligation to come up with a plan to upgrade it over whatever period of time we think is appropriate.
Thank you.
I think that makes tremendous
But
sense.
there's been an existing history of upgrades. It doesn't happen overnight, right? Am I correct? So it's not like it's been abandoned. I think there's been effort over the years. So to act like the idea just came out of nowhere is ridiculous.
Of course, that's why it's been for 100 years. There should be a plan that doesn't go over 12 to 15 years. I mean,
To open the meeting with
should be
Mr.
done
Tucker, I gave him a background on that scout home and what's been done there, at no expense to the town, such as the siding. We got a grant from the charitable through the county. We put the new roof on under that grant. New windows were put in that building at our expense, not at expense to the town, and a donation from the Ritter family.
On-demand water heater?
The water heater, I think we took out of our budget, if I'm not
Correct.
mistaken.
You did part of it. Correct.
I can only think of 2 times off the top of my head that we used the $1,000 line item in the budget. The other time was when the stove, we were doing a spaghetti dinner, and I had bread in the oven, and the oven went out, we were cooking on top, I opened the oven, and the oven exploded, and knocked me from one end of that kitchen to the other. I said, that's it, the dinner's done, we're going home, this stove's coming out of here. We went 50-50 with the town to put a new stove in. They were the 2 major things I can
And you bought a
think of.
refrigerator, remember?
New refrigerator.
Yes, we did, a refrigerator.
All of this is very ad hoc. It's the effort, but it's still ad hoc. We should have something a little more specific on what we'd like to do.
Proactive.
And it shouldn't take 10 years. It should be a 3-year plan to get it functional. And if it's part of capital, and if we can't do it because the money never will time out, maybe it'll take 5 years. But we still should have something, and I think we should take Councilman Tucker's suggestion as a volunteer to come up with a plan like that.
Thank you.
I don't think he realizes the money and the sweat equity that the volunteers have put into the building at no cost to the town.
But you shouldn't take it as a criticism at all. kind, I'm saying let's accelerate it with more of the town.
Let's make it better. Let's make it better. Let's make it
You
better.
don't know anything about it. How can you make it better?
What don't I know?
Any other public comment?
I just have one thing I'd like to add before we end this. I'm a sitting member of the Warren County Senior Advisory Council. If you have constituents that are having problems with their bills, their medication, whatever, please put them in contact with me, because I can put them in contact with people who can help them.
Thank you. Pete?
Just a question on the landlord registration. Does that apply to storage units?
No, I wouldn't think so. Rita?
I'm not even gonna talk about the scout home because he walked in and I will quote a statement. Good evening, I'm Walt Tutka, I'm here on behalf of the council. I'll drop it there. But I will have to say, a couple weeks ago, I had a little incident with 3 teenage children and they didn't quite know what to do. They discussed some things with me. I called Sergeant Tootle. I made a few little discussions with Sergeant Tootle. He talked to the chief. Within 48 hours, all of our little discussions were solved, and because they're 13, 14, and 15 years old, we're not going into who they were, any of the dishes of what went on. But you can't ask for a better police force than the town of Delaware has. And there are 3 teenage kids that I'll stake my life on will never be in trouble with the law because they have too much respect. When they found out that the police solved their problem, they asked if there was possibility of thanking them personally. So they were able to get a hold of Officer Mariani and thank him personally.
There's no
So once
question-
again,
No
don't
question what
give
they
me
did
any
was
bull about your police
above and
department.
beyond outstanding. Absolutely
They
outstanding.
are above and beyond.
Outstanding. Bert?
Question about the registration, apartment registration, you said out-of-town landlords?
No, my question was, I'm not concerned with our in-town landlords because they respect their properties because they live here. You know, that doesn't give them a free ride. Everybody's good. Sorry.
No worries. And then 25 per apartment?
25 up to 2 apartments. So if you have 2 units, it's $25, okay? If you have 2 or more, like a third unit, it's $10 each unit, the way it's written. So if you have 4, it's $40 versus.
Okay. We have to provide the name of who's living there?
Correct, and that is going to be something that Kevin's gonna look at and review.
And the number of occupants.
And that's gonna be in the police departments, why they're involved with the confidentiality part. So,
there's some work to do.
again, it's gotta be read yet, I have no idea, Bert, Bert. So, let it come back to us, and we'll discuss it at the next meeting.
And then lastly, the Janville properties and additional truck traffic, should that come to be, when that comes to be, do we have ordinances which direct traffic out of town for trucks who are not making deliveries? And then how does that play with DSM?
We absolutely do have an ordinance in place. I won't say much on the Janville property, because it's just like recreation, medical marijuana. It's still out there yet, decisions haven't been made. I won't disrespect the White Township mayor and speak for or against him until he gets all his stuff in a row. But in answer to your question, we do have an ordinance in place where tractor trailers should only be entering town for local deliveries. The only thing that we don't have control of is the county road, which comes in. But other than that, the traffic that leaves DSM are supposed to be making a left. When they don't make a left, then they come in through town. I think we've been stopping probably 80 or 90% of them, and they are ticketed.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Any other public comment? Yes.
Mayor, I just want to, because I can't leave it this way. Mr. Young, as I said as you walked in, the council's whole doesn't necessarily feel that way. I think the majority of us are extremely proud and thrilled with that, what you and the founders sitting next to you have accomplished. It's just been miraculous. We've sat here for years listening to what can we do with the youth? They have nothing to do, nothing to do, nothing to do. Now, you gave them, and your founders there gave them something to do, and we're going to argue over $10,000 a year. I don't think it's fair, but I just wanted to leave it on a positive note. I think you've done, and your staff done an outstanding job. So thank you.
Any other public comment? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Have a good night, folks. Thank you.
Thank you.